What led you go to Crockett?
That ties in with the Ric Flair thing. He came down to Florida, worked a couple times, and thought I had a lot of potential. Liked the way I looked, and and the crowd always. I was real lucky. The crowd always, to the very, all through my career, whether I was a heel or a baby face, wherever it was, I always bought into it, and I was always appreciative of that. I mean, the fans always. I was like the utility guy. I was like the low maintenance, high productivity guy. I mean, if somebody got hurt or blew their knee out or something, well, we need to heal. Well, it's Luger. It wasn't best for Luger. I'm talking about Luger's third person now, not Larry Full. But it was like, and I knew enough of that at that point. That's not good to keep on switching back and forth, but the fans somehow, some way, kind of stayed with it, and it was, it was,
Initial impressions of Dusty Rhodes.
Dusty?
Yeah, when you first met him.
He's a character. He's a very charismatic, schmoozer kind of. Dusty Rhodes, American Dream kind of guy. He helped me a lot. I mean, about the interviews. Before I go out and interview, he talked to me and said, "Keep it simple and say this." And he was always very, very helpful to me. As far as I know,
right. Now, this was a different territory, obviously, from Florida.
I didn't know all the behind-the-scenes stuff that went on in the booking rooms and stuff, especially over my career. I mean. Who knows what this is said about me there, but I mean, as far as to my face, Dusty was always very helpful, real nice to me, So,
did you know
nothing but good things about him from my aspect,
Right. Did you notice a big difference as far as the territories working down in Florida than being in a national company like NWA at the time?
Oh, sure. The crowds are 100 times larger, bigger arenas. It's a huge difference, yeah.
What were your initial impressions of Jim Crockett Jr. when you first came to NWA?
Well, he was always very nice to me. I saw him teach other people. Like, I'm a watcher. I'm quiet. People take that as arrogance. And there's nothing I can do about it. When I was growing up, not speak unless you're spoken to, especially a new guy.
Right.
So all people took that you're cocky or arrogant, and I did it out of respect. And once that starts, it kind of steamrolls, and people spread that word, and then the fans and everybody starts thinking that's who you are when it's not. But I mean, they can think what they want. You can't prevent that,
Because of your size and stature, did WWF give you any feelers like early on, as you were going to Crockett?
I met Vince McMahon in Las Vegas at a gym one time, and he just was real cordial, like he always is. He's a great schmoozer, and I mean in a bad way.
Right.
He's very, very personable, and came up to the gym and came up to me. He's a big deal. Who am I, and shook my hand, said, I'm watching you and love to do business someday in the future, and that was my first contact with them. Was with him in a gym.
Right.
But no business was talked about, like, we're going to bring you in, or
right.
That. It was just generalities.
Right.
Introduction.
Yeah.
What do you remember about the Crockett when he brought UWF? And was there tension or cliques between the two companies when he first brought UWF?
I heard there was. At the time I didn't. Once again, I was pretty new in the business, so I didn't know there was, but I guess there was.
Right.
And once I got to know Sting and started to travel with him, he felt like he explained that they were treated kind of like they were the lower echelon, and
like
we were the
class.
big deal. And I mean, Sting didn't mean in a bad way. He just felt they were like second class,
Right.
And me being on the ones who weren't treated that way, I guess I didn't really see it that way,
right.
Which is, I guess, human nature. I didn't try to treat him with disrespect at all, but I mean, I just, once I talked to Sting and got to know him real well and everything, I could see his point, definitely.
How did your friendship actually develop with Sting?
It's funny. The first time he know my sense of humor, and I have a kind of dry, sarcastic sense of humor.
Right.
People take it the wrong way a lot of times, and it's just who I am. And it's not meant to be cocky or anything. First time Sting said to me, he came out and goes, "How do you stay in such good shape, traveling and this stuff?" I go, Stolies and peanut covered M&Ms. And he walked away like, "You gotta be kidding me." I compliment you and you dissed me. You know what I mean? We joked about that forever after that, you know. And but Sting's a great guy. He gave me, luckily he gave me a second chance. We had and still have a great friendship, you know.
What do you remember about Turner's purchase of WCW?
I was told very little,
Right.
other than move to Atlanta. We don't want to pay extra airfare from Charlotte,
Sure.
Right. Wow.
so move to Atlanta.
Did the boys think that something big was going to happen now that Turner was involved? More money would be put into the company?
I'm sure. Yeah, we all regard it as a positive. You know,
Right.
Ted Turner does things in big ways. You know, and we all looked at it as a positive. Definitely at the time. Come back on it, yeah.
Now, when Jim Herd actually got involved in the company, Herd is pretty much known as a goofy guy who did a lot of goofy angles and didn't know the wrestling business. Do you remember any proposed things that you turned down that he proposed to you?
I never. You know what? In spite of what anybody says, I have never turned down a finish, anything in my entire career. I never have ever disputed. I've just done what I've been told to do in the ring.
Right.
So, good or bad for me, because that's why I was brought into business by a hero. So, he may have. I don't recall anything like in particular. I'm going, "Oh, that Jim Herd really hated me,"
Right.
you know, or had it out for me, you know. So, but I'm sure there was things he had me do that probably I was kind of. One thing I think I was not abused, but I think they used the fact that I could be a babyface or a heel, which really is a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
That I could switch back and forth so many times and still be.
Still be over.
Yeah, I mean that's
Right.
it's hard to keep it legitimate
Right.
doing that, and I thought they kind of at times took advantage of that a little bit when, like I said, when I got injured and needed a babyface or heel.
Like
It's
when
like, "Oh,
Sting-
let's switch Lex."
Right.
He'll do it.
Right.
You know, and he'll do okay. He'll do okay job with it. You
You
know?
did it again with Sting when he got hurt. They turned you face again. So.
Always.
All right. What are your
Like a
memories?
utility outfielder or something.
What are your memories of Brian Pillman? You had a great series with Brian.
Brian was a funny guy, man. He worked hard, played hard. He was Brian Pillman was a funny guy to be around. He was very gregarious and outgoing, and I have nothing but fond memories of Brian. I think he was a great guy.
What was the story with Ric Flair refusing to drop the title to you? I think it was around.
You know, I never looked at it that way. It wasn't refusing to drop it to me. I think he had a problem with the company.
Right.
It wasn't a problem with Lex Luger.
Okay.
And I never looked at it that way. So I never took it personal. You know,
It was politics.
I just it was us between him and the booking committee and people run the company. I never took it personally at all because I was Rick, you know, has issues with the company.
Right.
You know what I mean? That I knew Rick liked me personally, so I really never took it that way. In spite of rumors, I'm sure, but I never took it that way.
Some wrestlers to this day are bitter towards Ric Flair for leaving WCW and taking the belt on Vince's TV with intentions of crippling the company. What are your thoughts on that? And was there like a divide in the locker room between Flair's allies and the enemies, or?
Not, I didn't feel there was any real division there. I thought some of the guys thought that was unprofessional, but they would take the belt with him. That was kind of unheard of.
Right.
You know,
Right.
he had some. I don't know. He said it was NWA belt and he could take it. It was some legal thing. So
Right.
I don't think it was kind of like a legal thing. I never looked at it like he personally was trying to screw WCW and all of us guys.
Right.
You know, I never really took it that way. So Rick's Rick. You know, he's a good guy. I think he was doing what's best for Rick. You know, and and for his family. So I never. There might have been some divisions, I think, in the office and stuff, of course.
Right.
Which, once again, I'm not privy to. I'm not kayfabe in here or anything. I've never sat in one booking meeting, you know. So I don't know what they said about him when it happened. You know, I'm sure they weren't happy with him.
Right.
Flair basically just left, and then you had the cage match with Barry.
Oh yeah. Well, luckily it didn't, because my career flourished after that. I had some of my best years after that.
Right.
Knock on wood. I'm very fortunate. Looking back on it, there's probably a few times I switched from babyface to heel, or when I was in a situation where maybe I didn't know enough, but looking back at it, could have been the kiss of death, and I endured. Thanks to really the fans, really.
Right.
I really am appreciative of that. I mean, I really, really am. They somehow stuck by me, man. When I got switched too much, or I won a vacated belt, and I was like, oh my gosh, here I am with this. I actually had to go to the ring that night with a fake belt.
Right,
I didn't have a real one.
Right.
You know what I mean? The fans still cheered, and they were, you know what I mean? It was, made the best out of whatever hand you're dealt.
Right.
I think about that in life. You do the best you can do.
Right.
There's things that don't always go your way. And you deal with it and do the best you can do.
Switch tapes. You want to?
Cool. That's like.
Both cameras are good. We're good.
Okay. How did you wind up with Harley Race as your manager?
Boy, not sound like I'm brain dead or something, but
They just put them with you.
I'm the way I recall it was with Flair leaving for WWF with the belt, and Harley being a long time NWA champion. They felt that if I was going to have a chance to carry it off as the champion, which I don't know what bad spot that I was actually being put in.
Right.
Harley might have had some legitimacy.
They gave it to you for like a rub.
Legitimacy, yeah,
Right.
of course. It would be a good rub. So I think they thought that'd be a good thing. And Harley and I got along great. I mean, I love Harley. I mean, we travel in the car together, and people would think Harley would be a little traditionalist and this cocky Lex Luger or something. And Harley got to know me for who I am and didn't prejudge me. And we got along great, man. I mean, he's a great guy.
How many
I love
speeding
Harley.
tickets did you get?
Oh, man. Harley Harley would kill me. Harley could drive 100 miles an hour with the beer in one hand, with
Right.
one finger on the wheel. He's scary, but he's a driving fool.
Is it true that Harley was fired at one point and you actually quit the promotion until they brought him back?
I didn't quit. I just felt that with the position that the company was left in, from their perspective, not mine, of Flair taking off the belt and me trying to get over the same belt. If you're going to start something, don't do it for a couple months and just midstream for no reason to stop it. So I expressed my concerns and was pretty much, follow through, guys. Come on.
Right.
I mean, I've been trying my best. I might be the greatest worker in the world. I might not be this, but you hand this fake belt to me, basically, and want me to be your world champion, and you give me Harley Race, who's a legend, and then all of a sudden, for no reason, for a budget cutback, you want to fire Harley? Yeah, I did have a problem with that.
Right.
It wasn't. I never had a problem for what I was told to do, but I had a problem with that.
Who did you
I
have
thought it was just disrespectful to Harley.
Who did you have to take it up with?
The guys who were charged then, I guess it was who was in charge then? Dusty and who else was in charge then?
I don't know when Kid Fry
Watson?
came in.
Watts wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
I was never there when
Jim
Watts was
Herd.
there.
Was he gone?
It was Jim Herd and
Kid Friday?
Dusty and them. Yeah, probably. I would say it was Jim Herd. Jim Herd.
Right.
Yeah, but he comes from a business background, so him it was. Just a budget cut.
Right.
And I don't think he, when he beat the world champion, and then all of a sudden, for no reason, you want to fire Harley. Yeah, I did have a problem with that. knows how guys like myself and other guys felt about Harley Davidson or the Legend, and how he should get the respect. And you shouldn't just say, okay, because we want to cut back. We're losing money anyway, so let's, at the time, so let's get rid of Harley. I'm like, why Harley?
Right.
Especially when he's associated with the world champions. To me, it didn't quite make sense. I thought it was disrespectful to Harley.
Around 91, 92, when Flair left, you were you were obviously like one of the seniors in the company. Did you try to take leadership role, or did you really not care at that point?
I always care.
Okay.
To this day, I care. I mean, I told you, whether it was a house show that wasn't advertised properly, in front of 200 people, or Madison Square Garden, so I watch the same match. So I always care. So, because the 200 people I feel did show up, deserve, to give the effort from the guys.
Right.
So, I always care. But as far as taking a leadership role, as far as I'm not like I knew wrestling was never going to get unionized because the wrestlers would never stick together.
Right.
So I was never a guy that was. If someone would ask my advice, and I legitimately wants my advice, I would give it to them. I never offer it, and that's not. I don't care. It's because I don't think it's my place to say I want my opinion.
Right.
That's a respect thing.
Right.
Just to another human being. I don't go to guys that have matches and start being leader. Hey, you shouldn't have done this and that. And, that was the wrong place to do that. And I'm doing that in my match. You should ask me. And I never did this. I always thought it was taking the high road, I guess. I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I just mean, take the high road. If a guy wants to do 10-man high spots and half of them are in your match later on, and God bless him, Let him do it, I'm not going to get worked up about it,
Right. Memories of your match with Sting against the Steiners. It was really rare because at the time it was like one of the first times that a national company had two babyface tag teams going against each other.
Yeah,
It was
no
a
one
great
thought
match.
it'd work.
And it was good. It was really good.
No one thought it'd work. I can't take credit for it because Sting and them put Kim Melissa spots, but because I'm not like a spot kind of guy,
Right.
in my head. But yeah, that was a good feeling, that match, because everybody in the back was like, the veteran guys said, well, they're going to bomb. Here's four of the not young but younger bay faces that were pushing. We'll throw them in the same match together. Watch them. Let's see how they do without us. Making them look good.
Right.
And the match turned out good, so it was satisfying that we had a good match. That was very enjoyable.
How did things play out with you going to WWF? What made you leave WCW at the time?
Really, the thing with Harley kind of started me thinking, oh gosh, we're if you can't respect Harley race and stuff like that, what is there here? I mean, not that there wasn't anything there. They had paid my paycheck, I was appreciative of it and everything else, but I was kind of, and I think anybody who was at WCW at the time wanted to at least try to succeed at WWF, because they were always, at that point, considered number one. You know what I mean? So if you're ambitious and care about the business, you at least want to try. So I think it wasn't so much disenchantment with WCW, but wanting to try, WWF.
Did you contact them?
How'd that come down exactly?
Because I know you were still under contract when you went there, and that's why they brought you in.
Actually, I did the bodybuilding thing.
Right.
Segue.
That was the way to bring you in.
That was the way to bring me in, and not interfere with like an actual wrestling contract.
Did WCW try to stop you from doing the WBF as well?
Yeah, they did. I mean,
when you left, were you still under contract with WCW?
I just couldn't wrestle under a wrestling contract. Yeah, I just couldn't wrestle.
Right.
So
And they
bodybuilding has nothing to do with wrestling.
Right.
So,
but they try to sue.
But they did try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You always got along good with Vince throughout your relationship?
Yes. Always. I'd heard he was upset when I went to WCW.
Right.
Because WCW, the stipulation was that I do it unannounced, which
for Nitro.
which was really tough for me because Matt Suga taught me you always give a 2-week notice,
Right.
But people don't know that I actually worked 6 months beyond having a contract with Vince, trying to work out
New deal?
a new deal with Vince. And we were talking and negotiating. There was no bad words, no hostility. And it just got to the point where I knew that the contract that we were discussing just wasn't going to happen. And WCW gave me the opportunity, but Eric Bischoff's stipulation was, you got to be a surprise. Now, it went against everything that I could possibly want to ever do in the business. But it was a chance to get back in WCW, and I thought that WCW had a chance to really go in the upswing there. I wanted to be a part of it, and I regret that. I think I hurt Vince's feelings doing that, and I regret that. And I've written him a letter and apologized to him for that because I'm not unprofessional.
Right.
And just it was just something that that most people put in my spot. You know what I mean? At the time, the decision-making process I had to make for my family and I feed my family, that was a stipulation. So even though I didn't agree with it and want to do it that way, I did do it that way. So that I regret, and I apologize to him in writing. He has a letter from me apologizing to that. I did feel badly about that.
Did he respond to the letter?
No.
Okay. I guess when you worked your last show for WWF, it was a house show, then you debuted in Minnesota, I believe, I think it was the first Nitro, Wall of America show.
Right.
What are your memories of that, as far as the crowd reaction, and what was your...
It was a good crowd reaction. I went back to WCW, so I come back home again, so it was good,
How was Eric Bischoff? Because you never really got to meet him until that point. What are your thoughts on him?
Eric's Eric, Eric can be cocky and arrogant and mean people, but he was there. But I mean, overall, Eric always treated me fairly with contracts, and when he's told me he'd renegotiate early because I was doing the job, he always did, and I have to respect him for that. You know what I mean? Eric's Eric, but I mean, business-wise, he was always business with me.
Right.
He was always. I have no complaints over there at all.
Were you much happier to be back in WCW again, or was it just business?
It's never just business. You know what I mean? I was such good friends with Sting and
Right.
with guys. So I had friends back there that I had for a long time, and guys I'd broken into business with, kind of.
Right.
With the Crockett's. So it was. It's not just business. It was fun to get back there.
How did Eric Bischoff change with success?
By change, you mean?
His ego, did his ego get bigger when they started beating Vince in the ratings? And
I think he was. I took it more with Eric. Eric could be a little cocky and arrogant, but at the same time, I think he took pride in the fact that he had taken over the ratings, and he was happy. That's not just for himself, but for the guys that worked there. So I didn't really take it that he was being an egomaniac or maniacal,
right.
satanic, wrestling is. I beat Vince and this and that. I think he was. I took it more that he was happy for. It'd make him more money, obviously, if the company did well, and he was happy the company was doing well. So there's a feather in his cap. So did he get a bigger ego? Maybe, but for good reason, I think.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on the public Bischoff and Ric Flair feud? And do you think that Rick should have just accepted his role and stepped aside? Because I knew there was a lot of politics going on.
You're going into the inside stuff again. You have to give me a little more here.
Basically, there was a problem with they had the political problem.
Remember, I'm not an internet guy or anything, so you got to give me a little more sometimes.
Okay. Basically, Bischoff wanted Flair to step aside and push younger guys and stuff like that, I believe, and Flair didn't want to. He wanted to stay on top. And there was a political struggle. Right.
Everything's what you say on top all the time.
Exactly.
Or how old they are.
Right.
So, I never thought that there was anything wrong with Rick wanting to stay on top, and there was nothing wrong with Eric, for instance, wanting to push younger guys. Obviously there always has to be some kind of evolution. I think a mix is good,
Right.
but there has to be some mix so that in their own way they're both right. You know.
What are the differences between WCW when you came back to before you left? How has the company changed? When you first were in NWA and then it changed to WCW, how different was it this time around? Did it seem like there was
When I went back, I mean, from
after Vince?
after Vince,
Right. Did the company change a lot?
I thought it was because we had Hogan and Randy Savage, some really big names from WWF, and I think
was more
it started
structured.
to create some buzz. You know, that maybe WWF isn't the only big game in town anymore. And
How well did you get along with Hall and Nash?
I go along well with Scott and Kevin. I just had dinner with Kevin about a month ago when he came to Atlanta. Came in, the gym worked out, and we had went Japanese together. So I like Scott. Scott's just, you know, he's Scott, you
Right.
know. But he's a good-hearted guy, man. I mean, he really is. You know, he just some people have trouble sticking out of their own way sometimes. But I mean, he's a really good guy, and he's a good-hearted guy. And if he's your friend, he's a really good friend. So I have nothing but good thoughts about when I think of Scott Hall or Kevin Nash. And when we worked when they came in from WWF, we had some great matches. Sting and I against like him and Nash, and they were really good, and we all got along good, and so I have nothing but. And they upped the ante on contracts,
Right.
and that was a good thing that led to me getting more money. So I have nothing but good stuff about that, you know.
Was there a lot of politics going on at the time? Because, you know, there's stories going on that Hall and Nash would have Bischoff's ear, and then there was the Hogan faction.
I always heard that, but once again, I never. And I'm not being evasive at all, or trying to be elusive, or not insulting, but I'm always honest. I never.
You did your own thing too. You didn't.
Yeah, I never took part in those kind of things. But I didn't know whether Hall and Nash were meeting with Eric Bischoff secretly in his ear, or whether Hogan was trying to undermine them and was thought that, or they were jealous of him, and he was jealous of them, or any of that stuff. You know, I heard those rumors like everybody did, but I mean, I wasn't privy to it from any of them. You know, they never had a discussion with me on it. You know,
Right.
For me, and I always, my life experience, unless you hear it from the horse's mouth, I mean, you know, you never really know. You know.
From a business standpoint, did you think it was wise for WCW to try so hard for television ratings to put all the like main, even dream matches like on free TV compared to pay-per-view like it used to be? Do you think that was a mistake from a business standpoint?
Once again, you know, I was never an office guy,
Right.
so it's hard for me to say, you know, because obviously a lot of good decisions were made when WCW surged ahead and
Right.
beat them in ratings, and some of the old school guys' attitudes are, oh, we're giving too much for free on TV, but if you want good TV ratings, you got to give them good matches. So it's kind of a, you know, it's kind of a tough thing to make a judgment call on, you know. So, and somebody has to make, well, I'm glad I didn't have to, you know.
Right.
So I don't have any criticism of it,
Right.
you know.
What do you think that was? What do you think it was that destroyed WCW from the number one company to going out of business? Most people in WCW said they never really knew who was in charge. Is that true?
Oh, I think it was pretty readily apparent that Eric Bischoff was in charge, you know.
Right.
I don't think that was ever really in doubt, you know. I think that there was some confusion when Vince Russo and that group of writers came in,
Right.
of who was really in charge. Then Eric left for a while, and then they came back together,
Right.
and there was some confusion. But as far as blaming anybody, I mean, WCW had a great run, and Stone Cold, and then The Rock, people started getting over, and it's kind of cyclical, and they made a big run, and I take it their run was strong enough that I think TNT and TBS and the parent company AOL decided they didn't want wrestling anymore. I didn't think it was so much a failure as it was.
They just didn't
They
want
just
to.
once they fell behind in ratings, they didn't want to try to do another run. They were like, should we try to bring The Rock in here, or should we try, or Stone Cold, or sign them up for a bunch of money, and like we did with other guys, and try to make a big run, or what? I just took it as not so much a failure of the company as is that I think AOL Time Warner just kind of decided that they didn't want wrestling, which is their prerogative.
Right.
You know, I think it's sad.
Right.
They did, but I mean, at the same time, it's their prerogative. They own the company.
Right.
You know, they have shareholders to answer to, and stock board meetings, and you know, wrestling was losing money. So it was their decision.
Thoughts on the rise of Bill Goldberg? What are your feelings on Bill?
Guys, Bill rode with Sting and I to the car at Charlotte one time and asked Eric Bischoff to get a chance to get a job, and then he was going to night before he signed with. He was going to sign with WWF, and he called my house. I was on the road. And he talked to my ex-wife, and I hadn't checked into the hotel yet that night. She didn't know where I was staying yet.
Right.
And Bill had to make a decision like that day. And he talked to my ex-wife, and she explained some of the pluses and minuses about travel versus, you know.
Through your experiences.
Yeah, my experiences, and Bill made a decision off. I'm not saying myself, my ex-wife, and they are a big influence in Bill Goldberg's career choice, but I think Bill decided that WCW was his choice, and obviously it was the right one, you know. Because I was one of those guys I tell you about when the first time he walked out, I said he's got it.
Yep.
When he walked out there, came out through those sparks, people reacted, and I knew he was going to be a big star.
Did he kind of come to you for advice because he was a football player, kind of like you, had a similar background?
A little bit.
Got it.
Yeah, I used to work out at my gym before he even when he played
Right.
for the Falcons,
Mm-hmm.
and afterwards, and I knew him a little bit. So I don't want him about advice. I don't want to say I give Bill advice because Bill pretty much had a pretty good business since all along. You know, he was
Right.
pretty. Bill always had good instincts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but we talked some and. About wrestling, and Bill, I always got along well with Bill. I mean, gosh, I was Bill's last match, I think, with WCW. He had me pumping the torture rack. I mean, you know, so I mean, Bill was business with me, and we always got along. You know, some people say he got a big head and this and that, but I thought he did great. He was successful, and if he could afford his own plane and fly himself, I mean,
More power to him.
When people criticize the guy, that if you could afford your own plane and not have to go through the airport and like everybody else, and,
Right.
why are you mad at him?
Right.
You know, because he's been successful and done well. You know.
What were your thoughts on working with Shane Douglas after he made his remarks about you at times in ECW and interviews? Because he came in.
You know what? I never heard remarks he made about me in ECW. I'm total shoot, honesty. So, and working with him, if I'm told to work with him, well, I win or he wins, or whoever's going over or not going over, that's not my decision. It's who
Right.
runs the company, who's calling the shots, and so I had no problem with Shane. Shane might have a problem with me, but I never had a problem with Shane. I was a good worker, and I never had a problem with him. Sometimes I think he's a bit of he's a bit of a whiner, as far as he thinks he should be this huge star who's been held back by some unknown force, but the unknown force is that X Factor we talked about.
Right.
And Shane might understand that he just might not have that X Factor that The Rock or Stone Cold or something like that has, or Goldberg or somebody,
Right.
you know. And even if he looks good or works good or whatever it is, you might not have that X Factor. And you know, I think he's had a good career, and he should be happy with what he's done. So I had no animosity at all towards Shane at all. Whether he has something towards me, I wasn't even aware of any interviews he made. So.
What happened when you and Elizabeth left WCW in 2000, right before your matches with Palumbo were scheduled? What was it that she refused to do?
That was, that's always was the weirdest thing. Elizabeth never refused to do anything. She's a sweetheart, and she never she never refused to do a thing. She tried to do everything they asked her to do,
Right.
including wrestle, because she thought she'd never do. She even tried that. So unless there's something happened in a room between Elizabeth and somebody else that I wasn't present and she never told me about,
Right.
as far as I know, for a shoot, dead ass, God's honest shoot, she never refused to do anything.
How did you and Bagwell get close?
This Sting actually introduced us,
Right.
and Sting goes, I know he looks kind of like a prima donna-ish, and he waxes his eyebrows and all this stuff, but he makes me. Sting goes, I don't know why, but he makes me laugh.
Right.
And I said, oh, come on, Bagwell, you gotta be kidding me. Was he a stripper or something? I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, Sting and him were so unlikely to be together that when I came back to WCW from WF, they were rooming together.
Huh.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And when Sting started, and Marcus and I ended up eventually becoming such good friends that when Sting was now going on the road much, he was playing the scary guy
Right.
from the rafters every few weeks. Marcus ended up room with me, because WCW paid for my room.
Right.
So I got a double and shared a room with him and stuff. So we wouldn't have to blow his money on. It wasn't making so much money, so we wouldn't have to blow his money on a room.
Right. Right.
And we just he's a funny guy, man. He's an entertaining guy. He really is. He's a great storyteller, and he's a fun guy to be around.
Some people say that you and Buff kind of mocked the company losing so easily and so fast. I think it was the Greed pay-per-view. What are your comments on that?
You know that actually at the what was it now?
I think it was the Greed pay-per-view. I forgot.
I'm not sure.
Maybe
Who were wrestling?
Palumbo and O'Hara.
You know how things get. It's so funny how things get twisted completely around. I've never refused to do a job. I've done exactly the way that they've asked me to do it. I've never gone in the ring and pulled something on a promoter or a booker and said, okay, if you want to put this guy over, I'm going to do it in 2 seconds and make it look fake.
Right.
They actually wanted Marcus in that match to get beat by himself with me fighting outside the ring in about 45 seconds or 30 seconds.
Right.
And I said, and I volunteered, being the professional I am, if you really want to get these guys over that strong, I go, beat me too. I didn't care whether it was 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 45 seconds, or 10 seconds. I mean, I would have done whatever they asked me to do.
Right.
But they wanted Marcus to get beat, as from what I was told, in about 30 seconds. So, and my philosophy was being a professional was like, beat me too. And have the other guy, even though it doesn't count, because
Right.
you when you beat the legal guy in the ring, I go, beat me too. And it wasn't a sarcastic, it wasn't mocking the company. I thought I was being professional and giving something back
Right.
to young guys. If they want to push it, because you want to push these guys, let's push them. So there was no sarcasm or mockery from our veteran. Marcus got a bad rap, and I'd heard rumors about that at me, but there was no bad intentions, no sarcasm, no nothing. It was being professional, but yet we got hammered for it.
Right.
You're like, how can you be nicer and more cooperative?
Right.
And you get criticized for it. It's weird how things get on the internet, so get like so twisted from reality of what actually happened, from what happened in the back room to what comes out on an internet site or something that people tell you. You're like,
I know.
where'd they get that from? That's not even in the realm of what happened. You know what I
Right.
mean? It wasn't even discussed, but it comes out as the truth.
That's he said, she said.
And
stuff.
it catches like a life of its own.
What did you think about Bagwell's mom coming in and like putting the straps on Bagwell's mom, and then bringing in people like David Arquette and like the non-wrestlers?
I love Judy Bagwell to death, so I didn't mind Judy being on TV and whatever she wants to do. I love
Right.
Judy. I don't know Judy. She'll cuss you out too. But she's a straight shooter, and I love Judy Bagwell to death. So the Arquettes and people like that. I take it more that obviously he didn't need wrestling, so I always looked at when Rodmans or any of these guys come in and they make more money in one match than a lot of guys are making a year. So some guys were angry. I'd be like, hey, they don't need wrestling. They're wrestling fans, which is good for wrestling.
Right.
And if WCWs want to pay a bunch of money to come in to be a non-wrestler and wrestle, well, and they're wrestling fans and they want to do it, and, all power to them.
Right.
My hat's off to them. Hey, have fun.
Do you think that was?
So I had no resentment towards that at all myself.
Even from your background with Matsuda and everything, and the believability, and then you have Hogan selling for Jay Leno. Do you think that was, or it's just for the buy rate?
From the business aspect, from Hero's aspect, yeah, I see where that's kind of oh boy. But from the aspect of mainstream, trying to take wrestling as mainstream as possible to the biggest audience possible, Hogan's being in business. So, being in there with Jay Leno and selling for him. Right. So, I mean, I see the point of, oh, what's Jay Leno doing beating Hogan up? But I mean, at the same point, it's good that Jay Leno's in the wrestling ring. I didn't think it was a bad thing. At least my other people have other opinions, but I didn't think it was bad.
Right. When were you told that WCW was sold to Vince?
I heard the rumor like a day before.
Right.
That was totally out of the blue. That was one of the best kept secrets ever, as far as something a business transaction being made. Once again, my hat's off to Vince. I mean, he pulled it off. All of a sudden, WWF said WCW's TV.
Right.
Last TV show. You're like, oh my gosh.
What are your memories of that night?
Oh, all I did was interview, and I was on my home back to Atlanta before the show ever started. I did a pre-taped interview.
Wow.
So I didn't really have anything bad, negative, or positive to say about memory-wise of it. I was a little sad that WCW wasn't going to be a company anymore because I think it's good to have competing companies. But to the victor goes the spoils, and Vince won. So
right.
he took over.
What do you think when you heard Vince make that derogatory remark about you on TV?
You know what? I don't. You'll have to tell me about what he said, because
it was that night when they were. He was asking the fans who they would like for him to bring into WWF or WWE at the time, and he mentioned your name, and I think he made a remark like, you'll never see Lex Luger in this company or something like that.
Oh, I didn't take it either way, because I didn't know whether he was being serious or whether he was working, or so I didn't really take it as a. Once again, professionally, he was kind of strutting around. I took over WCW and was mentioning a bunch of names. So, to me, I didn't take it personal at all. That I control these guys' destiny. If I don't want them to wrestle again, they won't. And I didn't take it that way. If he meant it that way, then he's the only guy in North America right now.
Right.
So pretty much. So, I mean, I didn't take it that way. I didn't take it personally or anything, or that he insulted me at all.
What did you expect after the sale? Did you think you'd have a job there, or?
I didn't have any expectations whatsoever, to be honest with you. I didn't know whether they were going to try to keep WCW against WWF, whether they were going to have competing belts, whether they're going to completely dissolve and dismantle WCW. So I really didn't have any expectation of what was going to happen. I knew I was getting paid by AOL Time Warner for about another year and a half.
Okay,
I know that, but that's the only certainty that I had.
Right.
Other than that, I had no idea whether I'd be working for him or not working for him.
Did anybody ever call you from the company, Jim Ross or anybody, to come in, or?
I've had discussions with them before.
Right.
But I haven't gone in there. But it's nothing. Part of the thing is I'm in some legal problems currently. So until I clear those up, really, I wouldn't blame a major company for not wanting to put a lot of time and TV into me until I clear those things up.
Where do you think Vince went wrong with this booking of the WCW guys after the sale? A lot of people say that Vince didn't use the guys correctly, and a lot of other people are saying, well, he couldn't have because Vince always, wanted WWF to look stronger than WCW, and if he brought in a lot of the WCW guys and had them face the WWF guys, he'd always have to put the WWF guys over the WCW guys, just as an ego type thing.
If it's my company, I wouldn't blame him. I don't know whether I don't think Benoit's and guys are getting Guerrero's getting good pushes there and everything now, so I don't think he personalized it that, oh, you're a WCW guy and you'll never be successful here. I know some WCW guys that I've heard have said that, but I don't think Vince McMahon made a conscious choice that I'm going to bear every WCW guy to make my guys look good.
Right.
I just think he picked talent that got over when they went in there, and the ones that didn't. You know.
Do you feel he should have went after more of the top guys like Goldberg right away instead of? I think the first couple guys he brought in were O'Hara and Palumbo and Bagwell. I think
Bagwell, Booker T.
Do you think he should have went and bought up the contracts and had you come in with Sting and Goldberg right away?
Or do you think that's a reason he didn't?
I would have loved if he did, but I mean, you know,
right.
But that was his decision.
Right.
Once again, he was a winner, you know. So I would have liked if he had done that, but I mean, it's his decision certainly not to, you know, and bringing other guys. So that's his choice, you know.